The time has arrived to discuss the car that we've all been waiting for in GT7's October patch 1.25, the Mazda MX-5 NR-A. I know it's difficult to contain your excitement for such a truly ballistic new edition of a car, but being a 2022 model, it is technically one of the newest cars in the game. It's a competition-ready vehicle with a full-on roll cage, hardcore front-engine rear-wheel drive layout. It doesn't weigh that much, and it's super affordable. So at least on paper, it is a bit of a beast. When you actually drive it though, well, it's a 130 horsepower Mazda Miata, so you pretty much know what you're going to get. Now in terms of how this one compares to the regular MX-5, that for me is really where the problems arise, because as I mentioned in my review for the classic Skyline, which arrived alongside this yesterday in that review, that car, despite being another Skyline, does not feel like a duplicate because it is genuinely unique. It's nothing like any other Skyline in Gran Turismo, including even the other classic Skylines, such as the 71 and I believe it was a 67, the four-door version that we used to have in the older games. But this one just doesn't have that advantage, primarily because, ironically, of the improvements in this game in tuning. See, this car in even Gran Turismo 6 would have technically been slightly different, because you couldn't do this to a normal MX-5, but because Gran Turismo 7 has decent tuning, with roll cages, wings, body parts, you can basically just build this out of a normal MX-5. Now, that doesn't mean it's necessarily pointless, but it certainly isn't a good start. Now, one of the good things about the car is thankfully it's not that expensive. It's 31,000 credits, so it's only a few grand more than the regular ND MX-5, but with the aforementioned very modest amount of power, only a couple of horses more, the weight is low at 1,010 kilos, just over a metric ton, but again, not particularly remarkable, and ultimately, even on the track, it's, quick, it's sprightly, I would say. It kind of reminds you of driving like an old Lotus Elan, which doesn't have the most power in the world, but it's pretty quick, and back in the day it would have been, of course, a force to be reckoned with on public roads, because most cars tended to go for big engines and more power, so something like a Lotus, much like they did in Formula 1, being smaller, lighter and more nimble, could really surprise a lot of far more powerful opponents. The problem is now that's not fresh. That's not a new idea, we all know that. So having a car like this just doesn't really give you that advantage anymore. But with all of that being said, does this car have some saving grace? Is it a car with a secret special tuning part, for example, or some particular event that it really kills it at? Does it have glitched fuel economy or something to allow it to never need to pit in, or some weird little gimmick to make this car actually something of a sleeper hit? No, not really. It's just an MX-5 with livery. And there really isn't that much else to say about the car, to be honest, because to me this is an insulting vehicle to add to the game. And for the sake of not going on a full-on rant video, even though some people are apparently happy to see this car debut and was even the highlight of the update for them, if you don't believe me, just check out the community poll that I put out on the community page here on the channel, wherein, at the time of releasing this at least, around 2,000 people have answered the poll, and around 9 or 10% of them actually said that this was their favourite car. Now, you do have to wonder how many of those were just clicked for the meme, or is it actually legit? Well, there's no way of knowing that, really, but I would imagine that at least some of those are just from people having a laugh. But even if you take that as gospel, it's still only 9-10% of people or so. I believe even less, perhaps, might have been 7% or something last time I checked. It's not exactly a lot of people. And especially is this a problem when there was no circuit added, because it really just dumps salt into the wound. Ultimately, there's really nothing else to say about the car. It's something of a nothing vehicle. It's perfectly fine and perfectly pointless. It's not good enough to be an interesting cup car. It doesn't bring really anything new to the table that the regular MX-5 can't do, especially with some visual upgrades and power upgrades and performance upgrades. So yeah, buy it if you want to be a completionist, I guess. Otherwise, you're missing absolutely nothing by not buying this car. But to round out the video, I figured why not put in some footage of a Mazda that actually is pretty cool. So, for those of you who have checked out my reviews from this update, thank you for that. Until next time, I'll see you then, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.